The first time my mother forgot me on Christmas, I was 7 years old, sitting on the stairs in my red pajamas, watching the clock tick past midnight, still waiting for her to remember I existed, my sister's new doll clutched in my hands because I thought if I held something that belonged to someone she loved, she might come looking for it, for me, for any sign that I was her daughter too. My name is Clara and Whitmore, I'm 34 years old, and I have spent every Christmas of my life alone, not because I don't have family, but because my family chose to erase me one holiday at a time, starting when I was too young to understand that some mothers only have room for one child in their hearts. I was the second daughter, the unexpected one, the girl born 2 years after my sister Eleanor, who was already perfect, already enough, already everything my mother had ever wanted. Eleanor had blonde ringlets and a laugh that made adults melt, she could sing and dance and perform on command, she was the daughter my mother showed off at parties, the one whose school projects went on the fridge, the one whose name was called first at dinner. I was the quiet one, the one who read books in corners, who didn't know how to perform, who drew pictures of horses instead of making small talk with my mother's friends. I was not difficult, not rebellious, not bad, I was simply not Eleanor, and in my mother's world, that was the worst thing a daughter could be. My father, Thomas Whitmore, was a businessman who traveled constantly. When he was home he was tired, when he was tired he was silent, when he was silent he was absent. He loved me, I think, in the way that men who don't know how to love, from a distance, with checks and allowances and the occasional pat on the head. My mother, Patricia Whitmore, was the architect of our family's geography. She drew the map and placed Eleanor at the center, my father somewhere near the edges, and me, I wasn't on the map at all, I was the margin, the footnote, the space between the lines. The first Christmas I remember clearly was when I was 7, I had saved my allowance for months to buy my mother a necklace, a small silver heart from a craft fair at school. It cost $4.75, every penny I had. I wrapped it in tissue paper and wrote a card that said, "To Mom, I love you, from Clara." On Christmas morning, I sat on the stairs at 6 a.m., watching Eleanor tear through presents, a new bike, a dollhouse, a leather jacket that cost more than my father's suit. I watched my mother's face light up with each gift Eleanor opened. I watched my father sip his coffee and smile at the chaos. When it was my turn, I handed my mother the small package. She opened it, looked at the necklace, said "That's nice, dear," and set it on the table without putting it on. She didn't hug me, didn't thank me, didn't say she loved me, she just turned back to Eleanor, who was already unwrapping something else. I sat there, in my red pajamas, watching the clock tick past noon, past dinner, past bedtime. My mother never wore that necklace. I found it years later in a drawer, still in the tissue paper, still unworn, still waiting for a mother who would never love it because it came from a daughter she never wanted. Before I tell you about the Manor, about the Christmas Eve when they broke in, about the moment my mother finally saw me and wished she hadn't, I need you to do something. Hit like if you've ever been the invisible child, subscribe if you believe that success is the best revenge, and drop a comment with your location and local time. I want to know where the forgotten daughters are watching from tonight. Let me take you back to the house on Maple Drive, a suburban mansion with a swimming pool and a 3-car garage and a mother who spent more time decorating for Christmas than she spent looking at my face. Every December, my mother transformed our house into a winter wonderland, lights on every bush, a 12-foot tree in the living room, garlands on the staircase, a nativity scene on the lawn. She hired a professional decorator, spent thousands of dollars, hosted parties for her friends where they drank eggnog and laughed and never once asked where Clara was. I was in my room, most of the time, reading, drawing, teaching myself to code on a laptop my father had bought me because he felt guilty about something. I didn't know what. I didn't care. I just liked the silence of the keyboard, the logic of the code, the way a computer never forgot you, never looked past you, never chose someone else. Eleanor went to college when I was 16, she left for Stanford on a full scholarship. My mother cried at the airport, hugged her for 5 minutes, told her she was proud of her. I stood 10 feet away, holding my own suitcase, waiting to say goodbye. My mother didn't look at me, she just took Eleanor's hand and walked toward the gate. I took the bus home. That was the year I stopped waiting, stopped hoping, stopped believing that my mother would ever see me. I stopped calling her Mom and started calling her Patricia. She didn't notice for 3 months. When she finally did, she said, "Clara, why are you being so dramatic? And I said, I'm not being dramatic, I'm being honest, there's a difference. She didn't ask what the difference was, she didn't care, she just walked away. I left home when I was 18, I had been saving money since I was 14, babysitting, tutoring, coding small websites for local businesses. I had $15,000 in a bank account my mother didn't know about. I used it to rent a small apartment near the community college where I would spend the next 2 years earning my associate degree. My father gave me a check for $5,000 when I left. He said, your mother doesn't know about this, don't tell her. I said I won't, and I never did. I used that money to buy a better laptop, to pay for textbooks, to survive. My mother didn't call me for 6 months. When she finally did, it was because she needed my address to send me a Christmas card. She sent the same card she sent to everyone, a generic photo of the family, Eleanor, my father, her, and a space where I should have been, cropped out, invisible even in a photograph. I threw the card away. I didn't send one back, I didn't call, I didn't text, I just kept working, kept studying, kept building a life that didn't include people who had never included me. The community college was not glamorous, the classrooms smelled like stale coffee and desperation, the students were tired, working jobs, raising kids, trying to survive. I fit right in. I worked as a waitress at a diner, studied until 2 a.m., slept for 4 hours, and did it again. I transferred to a 4-year university when I was 20, computer science. I had a 3.9 GPA and a scholarship that covered most of my tuition. I worked as a teaching assistant, then as a research assistant, then as an intern at a tech startup that would later become famous. The startup was called Lumina. We built software for small businesses. I was the youngest engineer on the team, the only woman, the one who never went to parties, never drank at happy hour, never talked about her family. My coworkers thought I was mysterious. I wasn't mysterious, I was just ashamed of being invisible, ashamed of being forgotten, ashamed of being the daughter no one wanted. I poured everything into my work, 12-hour days, 16-hour days, weekends, holidays. I didn't take vacations, didn't celebrate birthdays, didn't mark the passage of time except in code commits and product launches. I was building something, not just software, a fortress, a name, a self that couldn't be erased. Lumina was acquired when I was 26, I had stock options, more money than I had ever imagined, enough to buy a house, enough to never work again if I didn't want to. I didn't buy a house, I bought a manor. It was an old estate, built in 1892, 30 miles outside the city, 40 acres of land, a stone wall, a wrought iron gate, a driveway lined with oak trees. The house had 12 bedrooms, 8 bathrooms, a ballroom, a library with floor-to-ceiling shelves, a garden that had been neglected for decades. I bought it for less than it was worth. The previous owners had let it fall into disrepair. The roof leaked, the plumbing groaned, the electricity flickered, but I saw something in it, a project, a purpose, a place that needed me as much as I needed it. I spent 3 years renovating it. I hired contractors, learned about architecture, chose paint colors and light fixtures and floor tiles. I worked alongside the workers, hammering, painting, sanding. My hands blistered and calloused, my back ached, my bank account shrank, but I didn't care. I was building a home, the first home I had ever had. The manor became famous in the local news. Young tech entrepreneur restores historic estate. The articles mentioned my name, my company, my success. They didn't mention my family. I didn't mention them. They had no place in this story. The first Christmas in the manor, I decorated. Not for anyone else, for me. I bought a 14-foot tree, hung it with antique ornaments I found at flea markets, strung lights along the staircase, placed wreaths on every door. I cooked a turkey, baked a pie, set the table with china I had inherited from my grandmother, the one person in my family who had loved me, the one who had died when I was 15. I sat at the head of the table, alone, and I toasted myself, to survival, I said, to building something from nothing, to being seen. My phone buzzed, a text from my mother. She had found my number somewhere. She didn't ask how I was, didn't ask about my life, didn't say she missed me. She said, your father and I are coming to visit. We'll be there on Christmas Eve. I didn't respond, I didn't invite them, I didn't know how they had found my address, but I knew one thing, they weren't coming to see me, they were coming to see the manor, the success, the money. They were coming because someone had shown them the news article and they had finally realized that the invisible daughter had become visible, too visible to ignore. Christmas Eve arrived, cold and clear, snow on the ground, lights on the trees. I had not responded to my mother's text, had not called, had not prepared for their arrival. I told myself they wouldn't come, that it was a bluff, that after 27 years of forgetting me, they wouldn't suddenly remember. But at 7 p.m., the wrought iron gate opened, headlights cut through the darkness, a rental car crept up the driveway. My mother got out first, then my father, then Eleanor, my sister, the golden child, the one who had everything, the one who had never once called me, not in 10 years, not even to say hello. They walked to the front door, they didn't knock, they tried the handle, it was locked, they rang the bell. I watched them from the window, standing on my porch, shivering in their coats, looking up at my house, my manor, my life. I opened the door. "Clara," my mother said, "you look different." People do, when they're not forgotten. She didn't apologize, didn't explain, didn't ask about the last 10 years, she just stepped inside, looked around at the marble floors, the crystal chandelier, the Christmas tree that touched the ceiling, and said, "This is a lovely home, how much did it cost?" I closed the door behind them, locked it, put the key in my pocket, and smiled. My mother didn't notice that I had locked the door, she was too busy staring at the chandelier, at the marble floors, at the 14-foot Christmas tree that she hadn't helped me decorate, at the life she had no part in building. "This is extraordinary, Clara," she said, running her fingers along the banister. "I had no idea you were capable of something like this." Capable. Not successful, not accomplished, not proud, capable, as if I had surprised her by being competent, as if I had been expected to fail. "There's a lot you don't know about me, Patricia." She flinched, I noticed. She always flinched when I used her first name, not because she was hurt, because she was embarrassed, because my refusal to call her mom was a public reminder of her failure, and Patricia Whitmore could not tolerate being reminded of her failures. My father stood in the doorway, silent, uncomfortable. He had aged more than I expected, his hair was gray, his shoulders were slumped, his eyes were tired. He looked at me like he was seeing a ghost. Maybe he was, maybe the daughter he had abandoned had died years ago, replaced by this woman in a cashmere sweater who owned a manor and didn't owe him anything. "Hello, Clara," he said, "you look well." "I am well, Thomas, thank you for asking." Thomas. Not dad, not father, Thomas, the same distance he had always kept, returned in kind. Eleanor was the last to enter. She looked exactly as she had in my memories, blonde, polished, perfect. She was wearing a designer coat, carrying a leather bag that cost more than my first car. She smiled at me, the same smile she had given me when we were children, the smile that said I am the sun and you are a moon that reflects my light. "Clara, it's so good to see you," she said, stepping forward to hug me. I didn't move, I didn't open my arms, I let her embrace me like a statue, cold and unyielding. She pulled back, confused. "Are you not happy to see us?" "You didn't call, Eleanor, not once, in 10 years, you didn't call, you didn't text, you didn't visit, you didn't send a card, you didn't show up at my graduation, my birthday, my anything, and now you're standing in my house, on Christmas Eve, asking if I'm happy to see you." The answer is no, I'm not happy, I'm curious, there's a difference. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again, no words came out. For the first time in her life, Eleanor Whitmore had nothing to say. I led them into the living room. The fire was burning, the tree was lit, the room smelled like pine and cinnamon. I had spent hours making it perfect, not for them, for myself, to prove that I could create beauty from nothing, the same way I had created a life from nothing. "Sit down," I said, gesturing to the couches. "You've come all this way, you might as well stay for a while." They sat, my mother on the velvet settee, my father in the leather armchair, Eleanor on the edge of the sofa, perched like a bird ready to fly away. I sat across from them, in the chair I had chosen for myself, the one that faced the fire, the one that gave me a view of the whole room, the one that let me watch them without them watching me. "We saw the article," my mother began, "in the business journal, about your company, about this house, about your success. We were so impressed, we wanted to see it for ourselves." "You wanted to see the house, not me. The house is impressive, the daughter is an afterthought, that's how it's always been, isn't it?" "That's not fair, Clara." "Fair, you want to talk about fair, Fair was the Christmas you forgot to buy me a present because you were too busy shopping for Eleanor. Fair was the birthday you missed because you had a headache but still managed to throw a party for her the same weekend. Fair was the 10 years you didn't call, didn't write, didn't ask if I was alive or dead. Fair is a concept you've never understood, Patricia, because fair would have required you to see me, and you never did. My father shifted in his chair, uncomfortable. Clara, your mother did her best, we both did, we made mistakes, but we're here now. Doesn't that count for something? You're here now because you saw a news article, because you realized that the daughter you ignored might be worth something after all. That's not love, Thomas, that's opportunism, and I've spent my whole life being used by people who claim to love me. I'm not going to let you do it too. Eleanor finally spoke. Her voice was quieter than I remembered, less confident. I know I should have called, I know I should have been a better sister, but I didn't know how, I didn't know what to say, I didn't know how to apologize for being the favorite, for being the one Mom loved, for being everything you weren't. You could have started with "I'm sorry, Eleanor," that's usually a good place to begin. I'm sorry. For what, specifically? She looked at her hands. For not standing up for you, for not telling Mom that she was wrong, for enjoying being the favorite instead of questioning it, for being selfish, for being blind, for being a bad sister. I studied her face, looking for the performance, the calculation, the manipulation that I had grown up watching, but I didn't see it. I saw something I had never seen in Eleanor before, genuine regret. That's a start, I said, but it's not enough. Words are cheap, Eleanor, they always have been in our family. Mom said she loved me while she erased me from family photos. Dad said he was proud of me while he wrote checks instead of showing up. You said you were my sister while you lived a life that didn't include me. Words don't mean anything anymore, actions do. And your actions so far have been to show up uninvited on my doorstep on Christmas Eve. That's not a great start. We didn't know how else to reach you, my father said. You changed your number, you moved, you didn't tell us where you were going, you disappeared. I didn't disappear, Thomas, I was never there to begin with. You can't disappear from a place where you were never seen. My mother stood up, walked to the window, stared out at the garden. The snow was falling, the lights were twinkling, the world was beautiful and cold, like her. You're angry, she said. I understand, you have every right to be angry, but we came here to make amends, to apologize, to try to be a family again. We were never a family, Patricia, we were a collection of people who happened to share DNA. A family is something you build, something you work at, something you choose every day. You didn't choose me, you chose Eleanor, you chose her every day for 18 years, and then you chose her every day for the 10 years after I left. You don't get to show up now, in my house, on Christmas Eve, and pretend that you want to be a family. You want to be part of my success, not part of my life. There's a difference. She turned around, her eyes were wet, real tears or performance tears, I couldn't tell. With Patricia Whitmore, the two were indistinguishable. What do you want from us, Clara? What do you need us to say? What do you need us to do? Tell me, and I'll do it. I want you to leave, I want you to go back to your hotel, or your car, or wherever you came from, and I want you to think about the last 10 years, I want you to think about every Christmas you spent without me, every birthday you forgot, every phone call you didn't make, and then I want you to ask yourself if you deserve a place in my life, and if the answer is yes, you can come back tomorrow, on Christmas Day, and we can talk. But not tonight, tonight is mine. There's a hotel in town, I said, the Marriott. It's nice, they have a restaurant, you can have dinner there, and tomorrow, if you still want to talk, you can come back at noon, but if you come back with honesty, no more lies, no more performances, no more pretending that we're something we're not. And what are we? My father asked. You're strangers who share my blood, that's all, and strangers have to earn trust, just like everyone else. I closed the door, locked it, leaned against it, listened to their footsteps fade down the driveway, heard the car doors close, heard the engine start, heard them drive away. I walked back to the living room. The fire was dying, the tree was still lit, the room was quiet. I poured myself a glass of wine, sat in my chair, stared at the flames. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number, probably Eleanor, probably apologizing again. I didn't read it. I turned my phone off, set it on the table, and sat in the silence. For years, I had dreamed of this moment, the moment when my family would finally see me, finally acknowledge me, finally realize what they had lost, but now that it was happening, it didn't feel like victory, it felt like surgery, necessary, painful, exhausting. I thought about my grandmother, the one who had loved me, the one who had held me on her lap and told me that I was special, that I was worthy, that I was enough. She had died when I was 15, and with her had died the only warmth I had ever known. I did it, Grandma, I whispered, I built something, I made a life, I became someone, they see me now, they finally see me. The fire crackled, the snow fell, the house was still. I didn't know if I was happy, I didn't know if I was sad, I just knew that I was here, in my house, in my life, and that no one could take that away from me, not my mother, not my father, not Eleanor, not anyone. I slept in the master bedroom, the one with the king-sized bed and the windows that faced the garden. The sheets were silk, the pillows were down, the room was warm. I had bought all of it, chosen all of it, built all of it, myself. At 3 a.m., I woke up, not from a nightmare, from a sound, a creak, a footstep. I lay still, listening, my heart pounding. The house was old, it made noises, but this was different, this was intentional. I got out of bed, put on my robe, walked to the hallway. The lights were off, the house was dark, I didn't turn them on, I didn't want to announce myself. I walked to the staircase, looked down, and saw a shadow, moving through the living room, toward the library. Someone was in my house. The shadow moved through the living room, silent and deliberate, not a burglar, not a stranger. I knew the way it moved, the way it hesitated at the base of the stairs, the way it turned toward the library instead of the silver cabinet. This was someone who knew my house, someone who had been here before, someone who had no right to be here now. I gripped the banister, my knuckles white, my breath shallow. I had installed a security system, cameras, motion sensors, alarms, but I had turned it off when my family arrived. Not wanting to explain why my own home was fortified like a prison, I had turned it off, and now someone was inside, someone who had waited until 3 a.m., someone who knew the system was disabled. The shadow stopped at the library door, pushed it open, disappeared inside. I crept down the stairs, barefoot, silent, my robe trailing behind me. I reached the bottom, stepped onto the marble floor, cold against my feet, and followed the shadow into the library. The room was dark, the only light came from the moon through the tall windows. Shelves of books loomed like sleeping giants. The fireplace was cold, the air smelled like old paper and leather, and in the center of the room, standing by my desk, was my mother. She was holding a letter, one of the letters my grandmother had written me, the ones I kept in a locked box, the ones I had hidden in a drawer she shouldn't have known existed. She was reading it by the light of her phone, her face illuminated in the glow, her eyes moving across the page. "What are you doing, Patricia?" She didn't flinch, didn't gasp, didn't drop the letter. She just looked up at me, calm, composed, as if she had every right to be there, as if she had been invited, as if this was her house and I was the intruder. I couldn't sleep. I came back. The door was unlocked. The door was locked. I locked it myself. "You picked the lock or you had a key made, which was it?" She didn't answer. She just folded the letter, tucked it into her pocket, and walked toward me. I didn't move. I stood in the doorway, blocking her exit, my arms crossed, my face hard. "Give me back the letter, Patricia. It's mine, it's not yours, it was never yours." "I was just curious, Clara. I wanted to know what she said to you, what she told you that made you so angry at us." "She told me the truth. She told me that you were jealous of me, that you resented me because I was closer to her than you ever were, that you spent your whole life competing with your own mother and losing, and that you took it out on me because I was the reminder of your failure. That's what she told me, that's what the letter says. Do you want me to read it aloud, or do you remember it well enough from your secret reading?" My mother's face changed, the composure cracked, something flickered behind her eyes, anger, shame, fear, I couldn't tell which, maybe all three. "Your grandmother was a bitter woman, Clara. She never forgave me for marrying your father, for leaving her house, for building a life she didn't approve of. She turned you against me, she poisoned you with her lies." "She didn't poison me, Patricia, she loved me, she was the only one who loved me, and you couldn't stand it. You couldn't stand that I had someone who saw me, who valued me, who didn't compare me to Eleanor, so you tried to erase her, you threw away her letters, you hid her gifts, you told me she was confused and not herself and not to be trusted, but I trusted her anyway, and she was right about everything." My mother stepped closer, her voice dropped, low and dangerous. "You think you're so special, don't you? You think you've won something, you have a big house and a successful company and a grandmother who loved you. Congratulations, Clara, you're still the same angry little girl who sat on the stairs in her red pajamas, waiting for someone to notice her. You haven't changed, you've just built bigger walls. I'm not the one who broke into someone's house at 3 a.m. to read their private letters, Patricia. That's not a wall, that's a crime, and I have it on camera, every second of it." The security system was off, but the cameras were still recording. "I have you picking the lock, I have you walking through the living room, I have you opening the drawer, I have you reading the letter, I have everything." Her face went pale. "You're lying." "I'm not lying, Patricia, I learned to lie from you. And I learned that lying destroys trust, so I stopped. I tell the truth now, even when it's painful, especially when it's painful, and the truth is that you broke into my house, and I have the evidence, and if you don't give me back the letter and leave right now, I will call the police and I will press charges and I will make sure that everyone knows what you did." The news outlets would love it, wouldn't they? Wealthy socialite breaks into estranged daughter's manor, it would be front page. She stared at me, her hand went to her pocket, pulled out the letter, held it out. I took it, unfolded it, checked that it was intact. It was. I folded it carefully, tucked it into my robe. "Now leave, Patricia, take your husband and your perfect daughter and go back to your hotel, and tomorrow, don't come back, don't call, don't text, don't send a card, don't ever set foot in my house again." "You can't do this, Clara, I'm your mother." "You're a stranger who broke into my house, Patricia, that's what you are now, that's what you've always been, I just didn't want to see it." She walked past me, through the doorway, into the living room. I followed her, watched her cross the marble floor, watched her open the front door, watched her step onto the porch. The snow had stopped, the sky was clear, the stars were bright. "Clara," she said, turning back, "one day you'll regret this, one day you'll want a mother, and I won't be there." "You've never been there, Patricia, that's the point, you've never been there, not when I needed you, not when I wanted you, not when I begged you to see me, so don't threaten me with your absence. You've been absent my whole life, you have nothing left to take away." She walked down the driveway, toward the rental car that was parked at the gate. I didn't watch her go. I closed the door, locked it, and this time, I didn't turn off the security system, I turned it on, every sensor, every camera, every alarm, I turned it all on, and then I went back to bed. I didn't sleep, I lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling, going over the conversation again and again. My mother had broken into my house, my mother had read my private letters, my mother had tried to gaslight me into believing that my grandmother was the villain. It was almost impressive, the audacity, the entitlement, the complete lack of self-awareness. At 6 a.m., I got up, made coffee, sat in the kitchen. The sun was rising, the snow was melting, the world was quiet. My phone buzzed, a text from Eleanor. "I'm sorry about Mom, I didn't know she was going to do that. I'm staying at the hotel, I want to see you, alone, please, Clara, just give me an hour." I stared at the screen, thinking about all the times I had wanted Eleanor to reach out, to apologize, to be my sister, and now she was, and I didn't know if I believed her, if I could trust her, if I had any room left in my heart for another Whitmore. I typed back, "Noon, the coffee shop on Main Street, come alone, if you bring Mom or Dad, I walk out." She replied, "Alone, I promise." The coffee shop was small, a local place, not a chain. The owner knew my name, knew my order, knew that I always sat in the corner booth with my back to the wall, facing the door, old habits from years of watching for people who never came. Eleanor arrived at 11:57 a.m., 3 minutes early, alone, as promised. She was wearing jeans and a sweater, no designer coat, no leather bag, no armor. She looked smaller than she had last night, more human, more real. She sat down across from me, ordered a latte, didn't look at her phone, didn't check her makeup, just looked at me, her eyes red, her hands shaking. "I'm not going to apologize again," she said, "I already did, and you said words aren't enough, so I'm not going to waste your time with more words. I'm going to tell you the truth, and then you can decide what you want to do with it." "I'm listening." "I was jealous of you, Clara, I was jealous of you my whole life." I almost laughed, jealous of me. You were the favorite, you had everything, Mom adored you, Dad gave you whatever you wanted, you were beautiful and popular and successful. What could you possibly have been jealous of? You were free, you didn't care what Mom thought, you didn't need her approval, you didn't perform for her the way I did. I spent my whole life trying to be what she wanted, and you just were yourself. You read your books, you drew your pictures, you didn't ask for permission, and I hated you for it, because I didn't know how to be like that. I didn't know how to exist without her approval, so I tried to make you smaller, to make you invisible, so I could feel big, so I could feel like I was winning. That's not jealousy, Eleanor, that's cruelty. I know it was cruel, I know I was a terrible sister, I know I should have stood up for you, should have told Mom she was wrong, should have been better, but I was a child too, Clara, I was a child who didn't know how to be anything other than what she was told to be, and I'm not making excuses, I'm just explaining, there's a difference. The waitress brought Eleanor's latte. She wrapped her hands around the cup, didn't drink, just held it, like it was keeping her from floating away. I've been in therapy for 3 years, she said. I started after my divorce. I realized that I didn't know who I was without someone telling me, without Mom telling me, without my husband telling me, without my boss telling me. I was empty, Clara, I was a performance, and I didn't know how to stop performing until I had nothing left. And now? Now I'm learning. It's slow, it's hard, some days I don't know if I'm making progress or just learning new ways to pretend, but I'm trying, I'm really trying, and part of trying is being honest with you, even if you never forgive me, even if you never want to see me again. I needed to tell you the truth, for myself, so I could look in the mirror and know that I finally said it. I studied her face, the face I had envied and resented and longed for, the face of the sister who had everything, and I saw something I had never seen before. Vulnerability, genuine, unguarded, real. What do you want from me, Eleanor? Nothing, I don't want money, I don't want your house, I don't want your success, I just want a sister, I just want to know you, the real you, not the version I created in my head, not the version Mom created, just you. That's a lot to ask. I know, and I don't deserve it, but I'm asking anyway, because you're the only family I have left. Dad is checked out, Mom is toxic, and I'm alone, Clara, I'm alone in a way I never understood until I had no one to perform for. I sat back in the booth, sipped my coffee, watched the snow melt on the window, thought about the years I had spent wishing for this moment, the moment when Eleanor would finally see me, finally acknowledge me, finally want to be my sister, and now that it was here, I didn't know what to do with it. I can't promise you anything, I said, I can't promise that I'll forgive you, I can't promise that I'll trust you, I can't promise that we'll be close, but I can promise that I'll try, I can promise that I'll give you a chance, and I can promise that I'll be honest with you, even when it's hard. That's all I have to give, take it or leave it. I'll take it, she said, tears streaming down her face, I'll take it, thank you, Clara, thank you. Don't thank me yet, thank me in a year, if we're still talking, if we've built something real, then you can thank me. Until then, just show up, just be honest, just try, that's all I'm asking. She nodded, wiped her eyes, laughed a little. You're so different than I remember. I'm not different, Eleanor, you just never looked. We stayed at the coffee shop for 2 hours, talking about nothing and everything, her divorce, my company, her therapy, my garden, her fears, my dreams. It was awkward and beautiful and painful and hopeful, 2 strangers who shared a childhood, learning how to be sisters. When we finally left, she hugged me, a real hug, not the performance hug she had given me last night, but a hug that said I'm scared and I'm trying and I need you, and I hugged her back, because despite everything, despite the years of silence and jealousy and pain, she was my sister, and some part of me had never stopped loving her. Merry Christmas, Clara. Merry Christmas, Eleanor. She walked to her car, got in, drove away. I watched her go, then walked back to my manor, through the gate, up the driveway, into the house that was mine, the life that was mine, the future that was mine. My phone buzzed, a text from my mother. I didn't read it, I deleted it, blocked her number, and went to the garden to check on my roses. The rest of Christmas Day passed in a strange, suspended silence, the kind of silence that follows a storm, when the world is still and waiting and you don't know if the worst has passed or if something worse is coming. I spent the morning in the garden, pruning roses that didn't need pruning, pulling weeds that weren't there, doing anything to keep my hands busy and my mind quiet. The snow had melted, the ground was wet, the air was cold and clean. I breathed it in, held it, let it out, trying to release the tension that had taken up residence in my chest. At noon, I went inside, made myself a sandwich, ate it standing at the kitchen counter, not tasting it, just chewing, swallowing, surviving. I didn't know what else to do with myself. The house felt different now, violated, like a book that had been read by someone who had no right to open its pages. My mother had been in my library, had touched my grandmother's letters, had breathed the air of my sanctuary. I wanted to burn the room, scrub it clean, erase every trace of her presence, but I couldn't, so I just closed the door and didn't go back inside. Eleanor called me at 3 p.m. "Hey," she said, her voice tentative, careful, like she was testing the ice to see if it would hold her weight. "Hey. I'm back at the hotel. Mom is, she's not doing well, she's been crying all day, she says you threatened to call the police on her." "I didn't threaten, I told her I would if she didn't leave, there's a difference." "I know, I tried to explain that to her, but she doesn't hear it, she never hears anything that doesn't fit her version of reality." "That's not my problem, Eleanor, it's never been my problem, I just got stuck in the middle of it." "I know, I'm not asking you to fix it, I'm telling you what's happening, so you're not caught off guard if she does something else." "What else could she possibly do?" "I don't know, Clara, that's what scares me. I've never seen her like this. She's not just angry, she's unraveling. She thought she could come here, charm you, convince you to let her back into your life, and when that didn't work, she snapped. She's not used to being told no, especially not by you. Especially not by the daughter she spent 30 years ignoring. The irony is almost beautiful." "It's not beautiful, it's sad. She's sad, you're sad, I'm sad, we're all just sad, pretending not to be." I didn't respond, because she was right, we were sad, all of us. My mother sad because she had spent her whole life trying to control a world that wouldn't be controlled. My father sad because he had checked out decades ago and didn't know how to check back in. Eleanor sad because she had finally realized that being the favorite wasn't the same as being loved. And me. I was sad because I had spent 30 years waiting for a family that would never be what I needed. "What are you going to do now?" I asked. "I'm going back to the city tomorrow. I have work, I have a life, I can't stay here forever." "And Mom?" "She'll go back to the house, she'll pretend this never happened, she'll redecorate the living room and host dinner parties and tell everyone that her daughters are doing wonderfully, and no one will ask about you because no one knows you exist. And she'll keep performing until she dies, because that's all she knows how to do." "That's bleak." "It's honest, you said you wanted honesty, I'm giving it to you." "I appreciate that, even if it hurts." "Hurting is how we know we're alive, Clara, my therapist told me that. I didn't believe her at first, but I'm starting to." We talked for a few more minutes, about nothing important, the weather, her cat, my roses, small things, safe things, things that didn't reopen wounds that were still trying to heal, and when we hung up, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, hope, not for my mother, not for my father, but for Eleanor, for the possibility that we might, someday, find a way to be sisters. That night, I sat by the fire, alone, with a glass of wine and a book I wasn't reading, thinking about the past, the present, the future. My grandmother's face floated in my memory, her soft hands, her gentle voice, the way she smelled like lavender and old paper. "I wish you were here," I whispered, "I wish you could see what I've built, I wish you could tell me if I'm doing the right thing." The fire crackled, the logs shifted, a spark flew up the chimney. I pretended it was her answer. I always pretended, because pretending was easier than accepting that she was gone and I was alone and no one was coming to save me. The next morning, I woke to a sound, not a creak, not a footstep, something louder, more insistent, pounding. Someone was at the front door, pounding, not knocking, pounding, like they were trying to break it down. I grabbed my phone, checked the security camera. The screen showed my mother, standing on the porch, her face red, her coat unbuttoned, her hair wild. She was pounding on the door with both fists, screaming something I couldn't hear. I didn't open the door, I called the police. There's a woman at my door, she's trying to break in, she's my mother, she's estranged, she's not welcome here, please send someone. The dispatcher asked questions, I answered them, address, description, situation, threats, I told them about the break-in the night before, the letter, the cameras, the evidence, they said they would send a car, I said thank you, and I waited. My mother kept pounding, kept screaming, her voice muffled by the thick oak door but still audible, fragments of sentences, you can't do this, I'm your mother, let me in, you ungrateful bitch, the last one was clear, sharp, a knife thrown through the wood. I sat on the stairs, the same stairs where I had waited for her to see me when I was 7, but this time I wasn't waiting, I wasn't hoping, I wasn't wishing, I was just observing, a scientist studying a specimen, a historian recording an event, a daughter finally understanding that her mother was not a mother. She was a woman who had given birth and then spent 3 decades resenting the child she had brought into the world. The police arrived in 10 minutes, 2 cars, 4 officers, they approached my mother, spoke to her, she gestured wildly at the house, at the door, at me, I assumed, they listened, nodded, took notes, and then they escorted her to their car, not in handcuffs, not yet, just a gentle hand on her arm, guiding her away. One of the officers came to the door, I opened it, he asked for my statement, I gave it, the break-in, the letter, the cameras, the footage, I offered to show him, he said it wasn't necessary yet, but that I should save it, in case charges were filed. Do you want to press charges? He asked. I don't know, I don't want to destroy her, I just want her to leave me alone. Ma'am, she broke into your home, she's now trespassing and creating a disturbance, this is not a family dispute, this is a crime, you have every right to press charges, but it's your decision. I looked at my mother, sitting in the back of the police car, her face pressed against the window, her eyes wild, her mouth moving, still talking, still performing, even now. Not today, just, give her a warning, tell her that if she comes back, I will press charges, tell her that I have the evidence, tell her that this is her last chance. The officer nodded, walked back to the car, spoke to my mother, she nodded, or shook her head, I couldn't tell, the car drove away, the other car followed, the driveway was empty, the house was quiet. I closed the door, locked it, turned on the security system, and went back to the garden. My father called me that afternoon, I almost didn't answer, but I did, because I wanted to hear what he had to say, or maybe because I wanted to hear that he was on my side, that someone in my family was on my side. Clara, your mother is in the hospital. My heart stopped, then started again, faster, harder. What happened? She had a panic attack in the police car, they took her to the emergency room, she's stable now, but they're keeping her for observation, the doctor said she's dehydrated, exhausted, stressed, they're running tests. That's not my fault, Thomas, I didn't break into her house, I didn't pound on her door, I didn't scream at her in the street, I called the police because she was trying to break down my door, that's not a crime, that's self-defense. I'm not blaming you, Clara, I'm just telling you what happened. Why are you telling me, what do you want me to do with this information? I don't know, I thought you should know, I thought you might want to see her, talk to her, try to work things out. She broke into my house, Thomas, she read my private letters, she called me an ungrateful bitch on my own doorstep, and you think I should go to the hospital and hold her hand? He was quiet, the silence stretched, thin and fragile, like a spider's web in the wind. I don't know what I think anymore, Clara, I've been married to your mother for 35 years, and I don't know who she is anymore, or maybe I never knew, maybe I just pretended, because pretending was easier than facing the truth. That's what we do in this family, isn't it? We pretend, we perform, we smile for the camera, and then we go home and ignore each other until the next performance. I'm sorry, Clara, I'm sorry for all of it, for not protecting you, for not standing up to her, for not being the father you deserved. Sorry doesn't fix it, Thomas, sorry doesn't give me back my childhood, sorry doesn't make me forget the years I spent invisible, but it's a start, and right now, that's all I have the energy for. I didn't go to the hospital, I didn't call my mother, I didn't send flowers, I didn't do anything except sit in my garden and watch the sun set and wait for the world to stop spinning. Eleanor called me that night, she was crying, not the pretty crying she used to do, the ugly crying, the kind that comes from somewhere deep, somewhere broken. Mom is being discharged tomorrow, they're sending her home, they want her to see a psychiatrist, to talk to someone about her anxiety, her anger, her obsession with controlling everyone around her. Yes, that too. Will she go? I don't know, she says she doesn't need help, that everyone is overreacting, that you provoked her, that this is all your fault. Of course she does, it's always someone else's fault, never hers, she's the victim, she's always the victim, the world is against her, and everyone else is just collateral damage. I know, I'm so tired, Clara, I'm so tired of managing her, of calming her down, of being the one who has to fix everything. Then stop, Eleanor, stop managing her, stop calming her down, stop fixing everything, let her fall, let her hit the ground, maybe that's what she needs, maybe that's what all of us need, to stop pretending and start living in the truth. Eleanor was quiet for a long time, I could hear her breathing, shallow and fast, like she was running from something she couldn't outrun. I don't know if I can do that, Clara, I don't know if I can let her go, she's my mother, despite everything, she's my mother. She's my mother too, Eleanor, but that doesn't mean I have to let her destroy me, that doesn't mean I have to let her into my house, that doesn't mean I have to accept her abuse. Love is not a suicide pact, you can love someone and still walk away, you can love someone and still protect yourself, you can love someone and still say no more. How do you do it? How do you make it look so easy? It's not easy, Eleanor, it's the hardest thing I've ever done, harder than building a company, harder than renovating a manor, harder than anything, because every time I say no to her, I'm saying no to the hope that she'll ever change, I'm saying no to the little girl who sat on the stairs in her red pajamas, waiting to be seen, and that little girl still lives inside me, Eleanor, she still wants her mother to love her, she still wants to be enough, and every time I say no, I have to watch her cry all over again. Eleanor was sobbing now, I was crying too, tears streaming down my face, silent, hot, unstoppable. I'm sorry, Clara, I'm so sorry, I'm sorry for being the favorite, I'm sorry for not sharing, I'm sorry for not seeing you, I'm sorry for being blind, I'm sorry for being selfish, I'm sorry for being everything you hated and everything she wanted and nothing that you needed. I know, Eleanor, I know, and I forgive you, not because you deserve it, not because I've forgotten, but because I'm tired of carrying this anger, I'm tired of being defined by what she did to us, I'm tired of letting her win, and every time I forgive you, I take a little bit of her power away. We stayed on the phone until the sun rose, two sisters, separated by years of silence and jealousy and pain, finally finding their way back to each other, not because it was easy, but because it was necessary, because the alternative was a lifetime of loneliness, and neither of us could afford that anymore. When we finally hung up, I went to the library, the room my mother had violated, and I opened the drawer where I kept my grandmother's letters, I took them out, one by one, and I read them, not with anger, but with gratitude, gratitude for the woman who had seen me, who had loved me, who had fought for me when no one else would. Dear Clara, I love you, I'm working on something, be patient, one day, you'll be free. I'm free, Grandma, I whispered, I'm finally free. The weeks after Christmas passed like a slow thaw, winter loosening its grip, the days growing longer, the cold losing its teeth. I returned to my routines, my garden, my work, my solitude, but something had shifted, something had cracked open, and I couldn't close it again. Eleanor called every Sunday, sometimes we talked for an hour, sometimes for 10 minutes, sometimes we just sat in silence, listening to each other breathe, learning that presence didn't always require words. She was seeing her therapist twice a week, working through her guilt, her shame, her need to perform. She was learning to be still, to be quiet, to be herself. My mother was discharged from the hospital. She refused to see a psychiatrist, refused to take medication, refused to admit that anything was wrong. She went back to the house on Maple Drive, redecorated the living room, hosted a New Year's Eve party, and told everyone that her daughters were doing wonderfully. Eleanor was a successful consultant, Clara was a tech entrepreneur. They were both very busy, very happy, very present. No one asked where I was, no one knew I hadn't been there. The performance continued, the audience applauded, and my mother smiled her perfect smile. I didn't go to the party, I wasn't invited, I didn't expect to be. I spent New Year's Eve alone, in my manor, with a glass of champagne and a book I wasn't reading. At midnight, I toasted myself, to survival, I said, to freedom, to the woman I became despite everything. In February, my father called. His voice was different, softer, older, like he had finally stopped running from something he couldn't escape. Clara, I'm leaving your mother. I set down my coffee, sat in my chair, waited. I should have done it years ago. I know, I was a coward, I was weak, I was afraid of being alone, but I can't do it anymore. I can't watch her destroy everything she touches. I can't watch her destroy you. I can't watch her destroy me. Where will you go? I have a small apartment, near the coast. It's not much, but it's mine. I bought it years ago, in secret. I don't know why. Maybe I always knew I would need it someday. What about Mom? She knows, she's furious, she's already called a lawyer, she's going to take everything, or try to. I don't care anymore. She can have the house, the cars, the money. I just want to be free. Free is a good thing, Thomas, it's worth more than any house. I know, I'm learning, it's late, I know, I wasted so many years, so many chances, but I want to be better. I want to be a father to you, if you'll let me, if it's not too late. It's not too late, Thomas, but it's not automatic either. You have to show up, you have to be present, you have to prove that you've changed. Words aren't enough anymore, they were never enough. I just didn't know how to ask for more. I'll show up, Clara, I promise, I'll show up. He did show up, not every day, not every week, but consistently. He came to visit in March, stayed for a weekend, helped me plant roses in the garden. He was awkward, uncomfortable, unsure of how to be a father, but he was trying, and for now, that was enough. We talked about his childhood, his regrets, his fears. He told me about his own mother, a woman who had been cold and distant, who had never hugged him, who had taught him that love was something you earned, not something you were given. He told me that he had married my mother because she reminded him of her, because he was trying to win the love he had never received as a child, and that he had failed, just as he had always failed. I'm not making excuses, he said, I'm explaining. There's a difference. I was broken long before I met your mother, and instead of fixing myself, I just found someone who was broken in a way that fit. We made each other worse, not better, and you and Eleanor paid the price. We did, but we're healing, Thomas, that's what matters, not the brokenness, but the healing. You're wiser than me, Clara, you always were. I'm not wiser, I just had better teachers. Grandma taught me that love is not a transaction, that you don't have to earn it, that it's given freely or it's not love at all. She taught me that, and I held on to it, even when everyone else tried to take it away. Eleanor came to visit in April. She stayed for a week. We gardened together, cooked together, sat on the porch and watched the sun set. We talked about our childhood, about our parents, about the ways we had hurt each other and the ways we were learning to heal. Do you think we'll ever be close? She asked one night. We were sitting by the fire, drinking tea, the dogs asleep at our feet. I don't know, Eleanor, closeness isn't something you can force, it's something that happens, or it doesn't, but I think we're on the right track. I think we're both trying, and that's more than we've ever had before. I want to be close, Clara, I want to know you, the real you, not the version I created in my head, not the version Mom created, just you. You're getting to know me, Eleanor, that's what this is, that's what the phone calls are, the visits, the silences, the conversations. This is me, this is who I am, and if you keep showing up, you'll keep learning, and maybe someday, we'll look back and realize that we became friends, not just sisters. I'd like that. So would I. My mother filed for divorce in May. It was messy, public, embarrassing. She accused my father of everything: abandonment, infidelity, financial mismanagement. None of it was true, but none of it mattered. The lawyers fought, the newspapers reported, the neighbors gossiped, and my mother performed, the wronged wife, the abandoned woman, the victim of a cruel and heartless husband. I didn't follow the news, didn't read the articles, didn't answer the calls from reporters who had somehow found my number. I just lived my life, tended my garden, ran my company, talked to Eleanor, visited my father, and waited for the storm to pass. In June, the divorce was finalized. My mother got the house, the cars, a substantial settlement. My father got his small apartment near the coast and his freedom. He said it was worth it, every penny, every fight, every sleepless night, worth it to be free. Do you regret it? I asked him. We were sitting on his porch, watching the ocean, the waves were calm, the sky was clear. No, Clara, I regret not doing it sooner. I regret the years I wasted, the years I let her control me, the years I let her control you, but I don't regret leaving, I don't regret finally choosing myself. That's a start, Thomas, that's a good start. July came, hot and humid, the roses were blooming, the vegetables were ripening, the manor was full of light and life. Eleanor came for a long weekend, we swam in the pool, ate dinner on the terrace, stayed up late talking about nothing and everything. She told me about a man she was dating, a teacher, kind and patient, nothing like her ex-husband, nothing like the men our mother had approved of. He's not flashy, she said, he doesn't have a lot of money, he doesn't care about appearances, he sees me, Clara, he really sees me, and I don't have to perform for him, I can just be myself. That's how it should be, Eleanor, love shouldn't feel like a performance, it should feel like coming home. Have you ever been in love? I thought about it, about the few relationships I had had, the women I had dated, the ones who had left when they realized that my walls weren't coming down, not easily, not quickly, maybe not ever. I don't know, I think I'm still learning how to let people in. I spent so many years being invisible that I don't know how to be seen, even when someone wants to see me. You'll get there, Clara, you're stronger than anyone I know, and you're not alone anymore, you have me, you have Dad, you have yourself, that's not nothing. It's not nothing, I agreed, it's a start. August was quiet, September was peaceful, October brought the first chill of autumn, the leaves turned, the garden prepared for winter, and I prepared for the holidays, not with dread, not with anticipation, just with a quiet acceptance that whatever came, I would handle it, because I had handled worse. My mother tried to call me in November, I didn't answer, she left a voicemail, her voice was small, broken, nothing like the woman who had pounded on my door. Clara, it's your mother, I know you don't want to talk to me, I know you're angry, I know you have every right to be, but I wanted to say that I'm sorry, not because I expect you to forgive me, but because I need to say it, I need to say it out loud. I was wrong, I was so wrong, about everything, about you, about Eleanor, about your father, about my whole life, I was wrong, and I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I listened to the message 3 times, then I deleted it, I didn't call back, I didn't text, I didn't respond, not because I was angry, but because I had nothing left to give her. I had given her my childhood, my hope, my tears, my silence, and she had taken it all and asked for more. I was empty, not in a sad way, in a peaceful way, like a cup that had been poured out and was ready to be filled with something new. December came, and with it, the first snow of the season. I decorated the manor, not for anyone else, for myself, for the joy of it, for the beauty of the lights and the smell of pine and the warmth of the fire. Eleanor came for Christmas, she arrived on the 23rd, stayed until the 26th, we cooked together, opened presents, watched old movies, and laughed, actually laughed, the kind of laughter that comes from somewhere deep, somewhere healed. My father came for Christmas dinner, he brought a bottle of wine and a bouquet of roses, he hugged me, held on a little too long, and said, "Thank you, Clara, for giving me a chance, for not giving up on me. Thank you for showing up, Thomas, for proving that you could change, that's not nothing, that's everything." We sat at the table, the 3 of us, my father, my sister, and me, the family I had built, not the one I was born into, but the one I had chosen, and as we ate and talked and laughed, I looked around the room, at the lights, the tree, the fire, the people who had finally learned to see me, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years, joy. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, I sat by the fire alone, thinking about the past, the present, the future. My grandmother's face floated in my memory, her soft hands, her gentle voice, the way she smelled like lavender and old paper. "I did it, Grandma," I whispered, "I built something, I made a life, I became someone, they see me now, they finally see me, and I see myself too, that's the most important part, isn't it, seeing yourself." The fire crackled, the logs shifted, a spark flew up the chimney. I pretended it was her answer, I always pretended, but this time, it felt real, it felt like she was there, proud of me, watching over me, loving me still. Here's what I want you to know. If you're watching this and you see yourself in my story, the one who was invisible, the one who was forgotten, the one who was told you weren't enough. Hear me, you are not what they said you were, you are not the forgotten child, you are not the invisible daughter, you are not the one who doesn't matter. You are the one who survived, the one who kept going, the one who built something from nothing, the one who learned to see yourself when no one else would. And survival is not pretty, it's not clean, it's not a movie where the family reunites and everyone hugs and the credits roll. Survival is messy, it's years of therapy and silence and learning to trust again, it's planting roses in a garden and crying for no reason, it's forgiving yourself for not being perfect. But survival is also yours, no one can take it from you, not the mother who forgot you, not the father who checked out, not the sister who was blind. You survived, and that is the only victory that matters. I didn't forgive my mother, not completely, not yet, maybe not ever, but I stopped carrying her weight. I put it down, in a garden, under a rose bush, next to a key that no longer mattered, and I walked away. My name is Clara Whitmore, I'm 34 years old, I live in a manor that I restored with my own hands, I have a garden full of roses and a sister who calls me on Sundays, I have a father who is learning to show up and a grandmother who taught me that love is not a transaction. I don't have a perfect life, I don't have a happy ending, but I have peace, and peace, I have learned, is the best revenge. The door is locked, but this time I hold the key. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever been the invisible child, the forgotten daughter, the one who had to build something from nothing, leave a comment, tell me, what did you survive? Thank you for listening, I'll see you next time.